Well, hello again. Got a new episode for you today. Why do you want to check it out? Let me ask you, how much energy do you have each day? Do you ever find yourself dipping in the afternoon? Do you want to keep that energy going? Well, then keep this episode rolling. This is the Salty and Wired podcast. This is a conversation between two salty and wired dogs who worked in construction and found a connection through technology. We are dedicated to sharing ancient tools with modern people. Each of our episodes is going to dive into a tool that can help you live a better life. So get ready, buckle up, and get ready to get just a little bit uncomfortable. It's time for you to get a little salty right now. Well, hello out there. Thanks for hitting the play button again and joining us. This is episode 8, and this is Rob McKinney, and I'm joined by my brother in breath, Ian Gray. How you doing this morning, sir?
What is up? I can't believe we've done 8 episodes already.
It's kind of a consistent pattern at this point, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, our conversations have always been consistent. Yo, so I'm excited about this one. Salty and wired. You know, we talk about wired, and it kind of like, I don't know, points to technology typically. But I am so freaking pumped about our conversation today because this is truly what wired is. I hope people listen
100%.
in.
Well, I think it might get some attention. You know, if we're going to talk to our construction professionals or design professionals, anybody in the AEC space or anywhere just listening, period, in your modern life, you probably drink a beverage with this thing we'll call caffeine, right? And I can tell you my experience back in the day of being over caffeinated, what it was like, and not really realizing what I was doing to my own biology, my physiology. But you've done a lot more study about this caffeine thing, man. I'm really curious to pick your brain to say, you know, if we're going to talk about how we maintain our energy in the day, there's several ways you can do it. I've done mine a few ways that now I realize are probably fairly unhealthy, but let's just kind of start with level set. When I'm talking about caffeine, most people, and I was guilty of this, I thought forever, oh, caffeine gave you energy. And, you know, you hear the things like Red Bull, it gives you wings. There's all this marketing concept around caffeine. Dude, what does caffeine actually really do to the human body?
Well, I mean, we could just dive into the science, but why? Let's back up a bit. Why should our typical audience member even care about this? Why do you think? What's on your mind?
Well, there's a couple things that can come to mind. I will say first, and not to like to scare people or put out shock and awe, but I have seen some disturbing fatalities in the past couple of years. And I heard about one through a safety professional friend of mine that he had a relative pass away from drinking too many energy drinks. This guy jacked his system so hard, and I'm talking like 6 or 7 monsters, the big ones, a day for who knows how long. I'm hearing from safety professionals, and especially in the summer, that they're seeing a rise. This started a few years ago. They're seeing a rise in first aids because workers are literally falling out on the job site. You know, they're passing out or they're getting heat stroke. And one of the root causes is finding out they've drank 3 or 4 energy drinks, you know, before lunch or multiple shots. Ballpark, what we're talking about is hundreds of milligrams of caffeine and all that other stuff and the sugar and the additives without enough water. So I'm seeing a health issue in the construction industry that people are drinking excessive amounts of caffeine and other liquids. They're not hydrating their body. And I think they've fallen into some of this marketing ploy of like, oh, yeah, what caffeine can do for you, and it's going to lift you up and it gives you energy and you can go, you can do more, you know, get jacked up and I'm going to go get my job done. It's like, hold on. That caffeine, it comes with a price. And, you know, I'll say back in the day as a construction professional, you know, because granted, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have all these energy drinks. Starbucks or Dunkin'. Oh, Rob loved him some coffee, you know, 6 or 8 coffees a day. High, you know, I used to be so proud. Oh, I drink the high octane coffee, you know, the stronger, the better, the bolder. Well, I didn't realize, you know, what the caffeine load was doing to me, but also that acidic level in my stomach. That's a whole nother byproduct. It's a whole nother episode,
Yeah.
right? But I'm seeing what I'm calling a crisis, and let's call it it's an energy crisis, right? But we're not talking about oil. We're not talking about gas. We're talking about human bodies being depleted from too
Hmm.
much caffeine,
Sponsored by Starbucks and Monster.
right?
No, but it's interesting, Rob, because I first of all, I'm well aware that I'm going to sound like a hypocrite today because I still pump up on. I don't do energy drinks. That's never been my jam, but I do drink a lot of coffee. But I drink a lot of decaf cold brew at this point, but I still pump up in the morning with caffeine. But I mean, yeah. So in my integrative health practitioner training, I study this shit extensively because it's not just the perceived energy, like you said. Caffeine that's hitting your body in a lot of different places, and one of the main places that people don't even really think about is your adrenals, right? And your adrenals, if you remember, those are the tiny little glands that we all have that actually produce cortisol. And a lot of people have heard of it. A lot of people don't know what it is, but it's really designed for emergencies. I call it the holy shit chemical, right? So like the reason why is because you think of a catastrophic event that might be about to unfold on a job site, or if you want to go back to cavemen, like a saber tooth is chasing you, whatever the shit is. What cortisol does by design is it spikes your heart rate, sharpens your focus. And here's the other thing. This is the perceived energy that people are talking about. It's not alertness, but cortisol dumps sugar to your bloodstream. And that's the energy that we're thinking about. But that's not good. Right? If you are being chased by a tiger or you do need to lift some rebar off of something, yeah, maybe you need that quick energy, but the way that modern Americans are consuming energy drinks and coffee, we are constantly pumping, even if there's no sugar in the coffee, the caffeine is stimulating your body to dump blood sugar or sugar into your bloodstream, right? So yeah, I mean, people call it an energy drink, but it's only energy because it's tricking your body into thinking there's a fucking tiger chasing you. That's not energy. That's survival mode. you know?
You're right, man. We're running our engines hot. We're redlining because, to exactly what you said, the perceived thought of, ooh, this is energy. Well, not exactly. Response to crisis, as in, there's a tiger, or modern world, you got a crappy email from the owner. The schedule's been delayed. It rained. There's an accident. Those give you cortisol spikes too,
Mm-hmm.
just as much. So your body's responding to the environment around you, and then you're throttling it because you're dumping in, to your point, all that caffeine. The molecules, the way we're designed, it's all interacted, right? And you start screwing around with that chemistry. To your point, that sugar dump comes in there, and we could probably have a whole nother side episode in this industry about diabetes and construction. The
Yeah.
onset type 2 for so many people. Like, where do you think that's coming from? All that
Walk on
sugar.
a job site. I'm going to piss a lot of people off. Walk on a job site and look at everybody's belly.
Mm-hmm.
People are always like, "Oh, I can't get rid of this belly fat. Oh, but I'm lifting all this heavy weight." Cool, man. But you know what? The reason why is because of the cortisol spike. you're
That's
you're
it.
also drinking 10 cups of coffee by 11 a.m.
Well, let's dive a little bit in there for a second, right? So we're talking about caffeine, we're talking about levels, and most people, maybe you've looked at it, maybe you haven't, but let's start with the baseline. If you're just doing coffee, regular standard coffee, that's ballpark 95 to 165 milligrams for an 8-ounce cup, right? Which doesn't sound too hardcore. Espresso, a shot, that's going to be in the 75 milligram range. And granted, the FDA recommends up to 400 milligrams a day for most adults is okay. So, all right, at 165 for a strong cup of coffee, or even let's just say a weak cup of coffee, 100 milligrams, that's 4 cups of coffee spread out over a day. That's maybe still reasonable. Now let's start talking about the energy drinks. Average Monster, 160 milligram. The small Red Bull, 80. Celsius, 200 milligram. Bang, to 300 milligrams. I'm seeing more and more with that up to 200, 300 per can out on the market. And granted, I'm just doing research on the internet of what they're saying is in the stuff. So let's just think about that for a minute. You crank one monster, the 16 ounce, that's 160 milligrams. But to your point, it's got all those other things in it and those sugars.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're already responding to a stressful VUCA work environment. You're getting emails and texts and schedule, and everyone's clicking. You got to keep going. And I feel what you're talking about, man. You feel like you're in the energy, you're in the zone, you're going, going, going. You're in fight or flight. That's what your body's doing. And then you're pouring more into it. And people wonder why they get home at night and they try to go to sleep and they can't, and they shut their eyes and their mind won't stop.
Well, and then they wonder why they're snapping at their kids, snapping at their spouses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I mean, let's talk about this. How do they typically come down? How did you come down back in the day?
So I had this little glass-shaped device that held a brown liquid. And I remember coming home and I would pump 1 to 2 fingers, for those of you that know what that means. And I used to tell myself and other people, I'd come home and have a bourbon to take the edge off, maybe 2 bourbons to take the edge off. And I'm going to remind people, I was the safety guy. I'm doing 1 to 2 drinks a night when I first get home just to take the edge off to deal with work stress. I wouldn't even go into the debaucherous weekends of, I used to brew my own beer, go to beer festivals. Yeah, the weekend level of consumption. And hey, by the way, I didn't slow down that caffeine, right? So the caffeine's still rolling, the bourbon's on top, then some beer. Yeah, I had just about fried my internal nervous system from years of, like a yo-yo lifestyle, right? Like you got to get ready in the morning. And so I'm cranking all the caffeine to wake up because I didn't sleep good. And then you're go, go, go. And I need the juice to keep me going, go, go, go. And then I get home like, oh, now it's time to slow down. So I start, you're going from stimulating to numbing 7 days a week, months on months, years on years.
Yeah. And what that does, and I've seen it with a lot of people that I've worked with on the side here. They've got chronic inflammation, insomnia, anxiety, depression, blood pressure problems, substance abuse. I mean, now we're getting into the extreme stuff, but the cycle is this is a vicious cycle, and we're not saying that caffeine is bad. We're not saying coffee is bad, but know what it does so that what you're pumping in your system could do, right? But yeah, I mean, you just described a cycle that a lot of us are dealing with, and then you drink more caffeine the next day because your body's built up your adrenals are burnt out, you're exhausted all the time, and you need that perceived energy. So it never stops.
So if we're hitting on a nerve, if we're maybe pissing you off, if we're maybe piquing your interest, right? Of, hey, maybe I do drink too much caffeine or other substances. How do you start making a switch? Because Ian and I are both saying we still consume caffeine. I'm just not doing 500-600 milligrams a day. Step 1, I switched off of coffee. Now, granted, I had a lot of stomach issues. I had acid stuff going on. Like I had a hard stop with coffee, not by choice, but because I knew when I drank it, it literally tore my stomach up. So I switched to green tea, black tea. I switched to teas. So I still drink caffeine because I know what that caffeine headache feels like when you're trying to kick caffeine and break up with it. It's a little hard. So I still consume caffeine. But if you study some of the experts out there like Dr. Andrew Huberman, Matt Walker, if you get into, following people like that and listen to what they're telling you about caffeine. So one level is I've switched from coffee to tea. So it's substantially less, right? Like a cup of tea is probably a quarter of a cup of coffee. So like 30, 40 milligrams for a cup of tea. The other thing that I've learned, and this is definitely from Dr. Huberman, is I delay, and I know this is going to freak people out, I delay the intake. So I get up and tea's not the first thing that goes in. First thing that goes in is a glass of water, actually salty water with some lemon, right?
Replenish
tea,
those.
Yep.
those
Because
minerals.
you wake up dehydrated.
Hmm.
And most people, they wake up and what do? They put in dehydrating fluids immediately. Like, no, that's not how you got to check the level, check the fluids like in a car, right? And bring them back up. Maybe consider switching your caffeine type, but for sure consider delaying the intake. So I'm usually 45, 60 minutes. They say maybe even 90 on average before you start consuming that caffeine, which people would be like, well, are you crazy? Have you seen me without my coffee first thing in the morning? I'm like, I don't need to because I know what that's like. Now, the question is, are you being a slave to the caffeine? Like, you can't be a nice human without caffeine. Ooh, dude, we got to talk, right? So, a couple
You know
tips,
what?
Ian. What do you think?
I think most of us have a relationship with caffeine. And if anybody wants to really test the relationship and just see what, maybe we could call it dependence, what that looks like. If you want to really take a look at your relationship with caffeine, stop it altogether for 30 days and see what happens. And then you understand a little bit about yourself and your relationship with caffeine. Right.
Cold turkey.
Cold turkey. Try it.
Now, 30 days is a stretch. Maybe let's rein in and go, just try 7. Or for some of you, like try one day, like on the weekend when you don't have to get up. Maybe pick Saturday or Sunday, a non-work day. Pick one day and see what happens. Then 2. Your stretch goal is 30. Yeah, go for 30. You want to reset your system? Because I've done this. My 5th panic attack, I lived on soup broth for like 30 days. I stripped everything out of my system. So you want to go cold turkey on a lot? It's not fun. It really wasn't by choice, but yeah, give you a 30-day fast and see. So, well, we talked about what it is, caffeine, what it does to you, talking to you about some alternatives of how you consume it. What is your relationship with it? To round off, let's give you a couple tools, right? So how can you work through your energy in the day? And I'm going to offer breathwork, meditation. One of the things that I've been studying for several years, and I've spent the last 3 years really honing this practice, is I first started to really realize, like, why did I need caffeine? Well, we'll get nerdy for a minute. There's a thing called your circadian rhythm. It's basically how you're tied to this planet, the sun, the stars, the moons. I know I'm going to sound a little woo-woo out there, but there's a lot of science behind it. Well, I came to realize every day, no matter what, between 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern, where I live, my energy dips. I used to blame it on the food, like, I shouldn't have had that big sandwich, or I shouldn't have drank that. It was always the food that I ate, or maybe because the people that I was around. Now, I've come to realize there are several factors, right? Like my body is tied to the time zone that I'm in. And so if I don't sleep good, that's going to affect it a little bit. And yeah, if I eat a big heavy lunch, that's going to affect it a little bit. But consistently, no matter what, 1 to 2, I'm always going to feel tired. And so, well, how do you deal with that? Well, you look at a lot of other countries, there's this concept of the siesta. There's an afternoon break. Americans are pretty much the only people that are like, oh, just go all day in and out, 12, 14 hours, get her done, come home, get shit done. Most of the rest of the world, they get up, they do some stuff, they go do some work, and then they take a chill, right? Maybe it is a nap. Maybe it's just sitting doing nothing. But what I've landed on is a meditation practice of a body scan. 3 to 5 minutes minimum. Normally I'll try and go for 10. If I had on the weekend, I double down and go a lot longer, but 3 to 5 minutes of a meditative practice. And I use a guided track from Calm, and it's checking in with my head, looking for tension. And normally for me, 1 to 2 p.m., right behind my eyes, that's where it feels so foggy. And we were talking about before that adenosine in your brain is what makes you feel tired at night. So you'll go to sleep, and it builds all day. And for me, 1 to 2, man, it's hitting like a tsunami. But if I can sit somewhere, put in the headphones, scan the body, 3 to 5 minutes, but I'm breathing at the same time. So I'm using what they call a coherent breath. So I'm breathing in through my nose, out through my nose, just trying to cycle. It's like putting an engine in neutral and just sitting there at a stoplight, right? It takes practice, but it kind of lessens things a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that 3 to 5 minutes, I'm ready to go run a marathon and I'm pumped up. But instead of that slow decline, because that's where I am, right? Like my energy's troughing, it's at the bottom end. And for it to come back up and be productive and actually clear the mind, because the adenosine's still there, right? It's still in the brain, but it's not so concentrated, if that makes sense. Back in the day, I didn't understand this. I would sit somewhere after I ate, or I'd be on a job site, or as I was traveling around, and I would feel, oh, I'm getting tired. And that's when I would go get a Starbucks or get an energy shot. And Ian, what you were talking about earlier, I was cranking my system. So my body is building the adenosine, going through the different stages, not realizing it. And then I dump in all that caffeine. And then to your point, that blood sugar. And then you're off to the races. Like, oh, I got energy. No, it's more like I had just throttled my system like on a roller coaster. Whew, and then hold on.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you, so in my practice, sometimes we'll take a look at cortisol levels, throughout the day. And there's a concept, I'm not going to get into it here, but of being tired and wired, which is what you're describing. And, the cortisol naturally, starts pumping into your system around 2 or 3 in the morning, right? And it tied to the circadian rhythm, like what you mentioned. And then what happens is it wakes you up. You're ready for the day. We're talking about trying not to stack another cortisol spike on top of that immediately, but you go throughout your day, and then typically between 1 and 3, it starts dipping because your body's getting ready to allow melatonin to take over and get ready for nighttime. But it's one of the things that we talk about a lot is what you just described, right? That afternoon, hey, I need energy. And we get it, man. Like people out on the job site or in the office, wherever you are, it doesn't even have to just be construction. We work in an environment where we need to be on in the afternoon. We can't just say, oh, we're taking a siesta. Although that would be kind of funny. But energy doesn't come from caffeine, right? Like you mentioned, it comes from oxygenation, right? Like you pump oxygen. That's where oxygen is what delivers energy to your cells, or it gets your cells pumping energy out, right? And so that's why, you can call it woo if you want to. It's just science, man. But breath work, right? And, maybe that's a good segue into, giving somebody a quick little tool. I mean, we've talked about some breath work tools in previous episodes. But there's one that I really like, and you and I call it the breath of fire, and it's not to be confused with the 2 or 3 fingers of the brown liquid that we're talking about. And if you want to get into yogic philosophy, right? Kapalabhati is what they call it, skull shining. But the reason why is because what it does, this little, breath work, it pumps oxygen, so it gets all that stale air out of the bottom of your lungs out. Right. And then by that vacuum is pulling fresh oxygen or fresh air in, and it's oxygenating your body. Right. And it's putting more oxygen in your brain. And that's the energy that we're looking for. Right.
It's a powerful one, man. That breath of fire. I've been using it a couple years. And to your point, it gives you a very different energy signature. I actually have been teaching it to some guys privately in their anger management of how to release, because you can use it a couple different ways. So if you've never heard of this, what we're talking about, it's a simple breath cadence of you're going to inhale through your nose, and then you release through your nose with these short, choppy exhales. And think about you're squeezing that air, what Ian's talking about, out of your belly, out of your diaphragm. You're cycling the air in and out, but it is bringing that oxygen to your brain. So it's more of what we'll call a top breath. It's about the head. We're trying to push out those molecules. We're trying to bring in the oxygen. And you can do this anywhere, right? Go sit in your truck, go to your trailer, go to your office, even standing in the bathroom, and if you're comfortable with it in front of other people. I had to explain this to my daughter and wife. I did it a couple times in front of them before I explained it, and they're like, "Are you mad? What's the matter?" And I had to explain to them, "No, it's this breath tactic that I'm trying." Because some people that have never seen it, you'll be like, "What is wrong with this guy?" Now, granted, if you're trying to just energize your brain and wake up, that's one level. Now, some of the people that I've been talking about, like when you're trying to release that anger, that's a whole nother level. Because Ian, I've actually been talking about, incorporating a good growl at the end of it, because you're trying to release one way or the other. But bringing that energy, that oxygen into your brain, hopefully that lifts that fog. And let's point out too, it's not one and done. Think of these as like little breath energy shots. Like you're not going to do one round of breath of fire and you're set for out. Maybe you got to do it once an hour, once every 30 minutes, like wherever you're at in the day, in the afternoon, try it out. Or, hey, in the morning, same thing, right? This is a positive way to put what we're telling you is like energy in your body versus spiking you with some of the bad stuff, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Rob, is breath of fire something that you and I call it? Is that like an official term? Because I'm wondering.
Yeah, I've seen it around.
Okay, I mean, just
you had
YouTube,
the
right?
proper word. I just can't pronounce it so well. Kapalabhati.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's a second word behind it, the pranayama.
Yeah, pranayama. I mean, that's just the Sanskrit word for breath work. I hesitate to say pranayama to construction people. People are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But
right.
all it is, man, all it is listen. Have a monster drink, have a cup of coffee, but don't fucking overdo it. When you need when you need energy or you need to clear mental fog out, just YouTube a video, based off of Breath of Fire or Kapalabhati. Maybe we'll put a link in the show notes or something. Just go do it. Try it out. It's just you're in fight or flight all day, and energy drinks are just going to pile on top of that. So it's helpful to maybe break that cycle.
Well, there's our mic drop, man. That's what we're trying to do with a lot of these episodes. We're trying to help you break cycles, negative cycles, and put you maybe in a different, healthier path. So appreciate you listening to this episode today. Short hit. We're talking to you about your caffeine. We're challenging you. We're pushing you a little bit. We're telling you we've been there, done that, but we've changed our method. So, Ian, appreciate your deep knowledge about how the body works today, brother.
Yeah, of course, man.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Salty and Wired podcast. We hope that you got a few nuggets of wisdom about this breath and caffeine fueled episode. Now it's time for you to go out and try the tool that we discussed today to build your blueprint for change.